You know, back when I was 19 years old, I was given the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I was told, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. Let's talk about that. Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by Idongesit Obeya. I was fortunate, how'd I do? I was fortunate to be on Idongesit's podcast, I'm going to say a couple of months ago, and I was so happy to discover the soulful person that you are, and you love life, and I could feel it and I could see it, and it was just a wonderful thing, and I could not help but have you on When I Stop Fighting, the podcast, because I think we'll have a wonderful discussion. So welcome, Idongesit, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you so much. You were one of those people that, the conversation was very much the conversation, and, we fed off of each other and we were genuine with one another. So thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to where this conversation goes.
I am as well, because I have no idea. Which I think is great. I think the way it's the more they're organic and they just flow and we just bounce off each other, I think that's the way that it becomes and remains a genuine conversation. So a wonderful thing. So if you wouldn't mind, share with us your story and tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the Idongesit of today.
Oof, that's a lot. I don't think we have enough time, for what brings me to the Idongesit of today. But
we'll make it a mini series.
I would love that, Daryl. Don't tempt me now.
Cool.
So, hello, everybody. Nice to be here. My name is Idongesit Obeya. I'm known as Professor Obeya most times, but I'm happy to be Idongesit today. I am from Nigeria. My name is very Nigerian and very Akwaibom. I'm very proud of it. So I'm a nursing professor, and on the other side of life, I'm also a podcast host. I have two podcasts, the Abeg Vex Podcast and the Unshelling Medicine podcast. So I absolutely enjoy the human experience. I enjoy life's journey. And it wasn't an easy place for me to get to where I am today. So that's what Daryl was talking about. And like many people, I've had my share of obstacles. I've had to turn inward to really heal things and, determine what bridges are meant to be burned and not to be apologetic about burning them, and to know that I am my champion and to value the people who value me, to, give life to pour into people who pour into me and not constantly pour into people who are takers, because there's plenty of those. So in my journey, my own life's journey, which is not linear, you have those valleys and mountains. I've learned a few things, and I have made it a very conscious effort to connect with people to share their journey so that we can be that person we wish we had when we were struggling with our own journey. So that's me in a nutshell.
Very cool. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack.
Right.
We're going to start unpacking those things, but you had mentioned something that really struck me, and a couple of things actually. The hurdles, which are, we all get them, right? We all get our hurdles, but the question is, what do our hurdles then make us do? What do our hurdles then make us do? That do we turn inward, like you said, or do we blame the world?
I think it depends on the person and where the person is in the life cycle, right? At a point, and not everybody goes through this, but most people go through this, and it's kind of like takes the cycle of grief where you're angry, where you lash out, and then you go through all of that cycle, and the depressive state and the bargaining, and then you get to acceptance, right? And all of that doesn't always take one straight shot. You can cycle through that, several times, even in a day, right? It takes a lot to get to a place of acceptance, and acceptance, not in the sense of accepting hurt or accepting the hurdles, is basically, how do I make lemonade out of these lemons? The lemons are here. There's nothing I can do about them presenting themselves. However, how do I avoid more lemons my direction? Or how do I make better use of the lemon? As a person who, faces bias on a daily basis, it's kind of like, I've learned to determine what gets my energy or what doesn't. My daughter's birthday was yesterday, and
happy birthday.
Thank you. So in the true spirit of ordering things and things not coming on time, I was stuck, and thank goodness my students are, on a week's break before the next semester actually picks up next week. So I had some time. So I was very thankful for that. So I did a lot of running around to, gather things, decoration, because the poor girl is also taking its state test this week. So it was like really on my birthday week. So I had to bring sunshine. So I went to a store, and it's a well-known party store, and a lot of them are shutting down now. I, in really a haste and trying to piece things together, I spent more than I planned on it, but I was focused on my child being happy. So I spent about $350, and that came with inflating balloons and everything. So this is an example of a lemon. So the balloons were being inflated and all of this stuff, and I paid for two bags to kind of like protect the balloons. However, there were two balloons that had like little fringes to them, and they would have tangled if put in the same bag. So the girl who was blowing up the balloon told me, well, I have to put them in the same bag. I'm like, hey, can you at least put in a separate bag? Because you already told me the problem. So why create a problem if we can just bag them separately? Well, you have to buy the bags. I'm like, how much is the bag? She's like, $1.
Wow.
So, yes, $1. So I'm like, okay, $1. So given how much I've spent so far, is that something that, you can throw in there, right? She's like, well, I'm not the store manager. I can call the store manager. I'm like, okay, cool. And the store manager came up, and I just struck up a conversation. Hey, we have this problem. However, I've made several purchases, and it's been over whatever amount. Is it okay for me to just have an extra bag so my balloon doesn't tangle? And she looked me straight in the eye and told me, well, there's nothing free in the store. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Not cool.
Yeah, also super cool. So I looked at her. I said, understood. Right? That's a lemon. And I've had those kinds of lemons thrown my direction at different times of my life. Right? So you're speaking to somebody who just spent a substantial amount of money. Right. And I could bet no customer walked in that store and spent that amount of money at that time. And, but you're telling me that nothing is free. Did I come begging? So I said, understood. And it's almost like she expected me to argue back. And this is another resource, right, for the many lemons I've encountered in my life. Anybody who does something to you, says something mean, something derogatory, or behaves a certain way towards you, they've bargained for your reaction. They bargained for it, right? So if she says this, then I'll come back with this. If she does this, then I'll label her the angry, whatever, right? However, what most people don't bargain for is your silence.
Right.
Right.
So true. So true. Yeah, and historically, Daryl would jump right up in somebody's face. But there's also, there's also a part where over time we're able to develop, somebody can hand us a lemon, and I've been talked to in a derogatory fashion by so many people, and had so many situations that just like, in the business world, you get screwed and it happens, and you get nailed to the wall, and people do unfair things, and it's terrible. And how do I react, and how do I bring it back to me, which I think is the key, right? How do I allow myself to respond in a more peaceful manner? Probably.
Why do you have to respond? Why do you have to respond? Silence is also a response, okay? Why do you have to respond verbally or in action? I think that is the one thing that we get stuck in, because you said this, I have to say something back. I can say, okay.
Right.
Or just look at you and say, can I get back to you? Because, the way that I think about it, Daryl, is like, it's an energy exchange, right? So I'm here lighter than a feather with all this white light around me and all this stuff. And I'm working hard to stay in that space. And here you are. I liken it to Venom. The movie Venom, the latching on. Right. So here you are with Venom, talking in your ear. And you do something that risks that Venom jumping on me. Why would I accept that? I shouldn't. Right. I will not. So I will let you keep your venom. I'll let you keep your smoke, because when you respond to people, there's a saying in my language. I speak Ibibio, and it goes oboriko idad adidad. So basically, what that says is a person who argues with a certified crazy person is also crazy. So why would I put myself in a position to be lumped? Or feed your narrative. I'm not going to do that. You have an expectation. And it brings me joy to dash that expectation.
Sure. No, right? I agree with that 100%. But what's happening in me while I'm doing that, which I think is the key. What's going on in here?
Right.
And in many cases, and these days, probably one of the things that, I'd come up with, if you ever saw the Terminator movies, like he comes up with all the answers, right. And, they come up in his little screen. One of my answers, and you talked a little bit about this, and I think it has to do with burning bridges, is one of my answers might be, you know what, I'm out. Have a good day. I'll go somewhere else and buy my stuff. That would be an answer that, that would be a response. Everything is a response, right? Silence is a response. Walking out is a response. Engaging in argument, which generally I just don't do, is also a response. So what am I choosing in that moment, right?
I was tempted, at that point. The one thing that I usually, and I tell my students this all the time, I weigh my options. The reason I was there, and I drove far to that store because similar stores around my area are now shut down. And I was there for my child's joy.
Right.
So I will not let you steal that by saying, you know what, just refund everything. I want my money back. I could have easily done that. Easily. And it was getting dark, and I driven another however many miles to get to the next store, and who knows if I would be meeting closing hours. So I will not let you have that satisfaction. The other part of what you said is what is going on inside of here is recognizing what triggers you, or what is a trigger. If I know you're saying something to get a reaction, whether intentional or not, I recognize that I wouldn't feed into it. So sure. it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of in nursing we have something called personal knowing, and personal knowing is really for a nurse to delve deep, right, and identify the biases, what hidden bigotry you may have, what hatred you may have that maybe you are not conscious of. Dig deep, identify those. So when you're providing care, those biases are not hindering the quality of care you're supposed to provide to your patients. A lot happens in a clinical setting. And one thing I don't do is react, because I would rather ignore you, because first and foremost, if I react, my students suffer, right? If I react, I risk my students having a short clinical day, or, losing a clinical site, or whatever the case, right? It's best for me to deal with it on a higher level than react in time. And I get this a lot from my student. Like you said, Daryl would react, would be in somebody's face. It's like, Professor, I don't know how you did that. You learn to do that. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you weak. It's the highest point of strength. Right. That, yes, you expected something, but I didn't give it to you, right? And walking away is the most incredible thing you can also do. Because if you feel within you, something boiling up, right? That's emotional intelligence. It's like, you know what? I'll be back, right? Walking away before, you say something that you regret. Not necessarily that the person did not deserve it. I'm sure that they deserved it. However, how do you sit with yourself?
We'll let the universe handle the person, right?
Just let the universe handle the person.
Right.
Just let the universe handle the person, and just, shrug off and let go. It's very difficult for people pleasers, or people that are genuinely seeking affection, or, togetherness, whatever that may be for anybody. You cannot please everybody. You're not candy, and even not everybody likes candy. Picture that, right? You can't please everybody. It's not possible. So learn to let go of, people that do not serve your peace, because we hang on to things. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be family members, can be friends, childhood friends, neighbors, colleagues. Just let go of people. Just accept people for who they are, where they are. And life is great. If I accept you for who you are, this is how you operate, this is your window of functioning, why am I getting mad at you being yourself? Like that is very much unfair. I wouldn't want anybody to be upset because I am outspoken, I am, bold, or I am nurturing. I wouldn't want anybody to be, not that, please be mad. If you're upset about that, stay mad. I'm happy for you. But, it just accepting people for where they're functioning from. You can't save everybody. You could try, but you can't save everybody. And
you can't save anybody, right?
You can't. Yeah. You really can't.
Yeah.
You really cannot. And, you mentioned burning bridges, and I enjoy torching a good bridge. So
you had mentioned that earlier about burning bridges, and there's an interesting balance, I think, that can be achieved and gets achieved, I believe, over time, where an old saying, I think now they call it boundaries. We used to say you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And I like hanging on to you teach people how to treat you, because I don't have to accept somebody treating me poorly.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that I have to be mean. It doesn't mean that I have to respond, in an unkind way or anything like that. But it does mean if there's something that just clicks wrong with me in terms of, how it resonates in me as far as somebody's treatment of me, I'll let them know. And, hey, if we're going to be doing this business together, or we're going to have this relationship, then this is where I draw the line. And if you can't, if that's not you, then that's okay. But, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the soup of my life, like all the ingredients that are in the soup. And there are people that are in the soup with me, and there are people that are just hanging on the edge of the bowl,
right.
like on the outside, and that's where they belong.
Yes.
my soul has gone from this to, it's very small. It's a very small circle now, which I love because the people that are in my life, and it's not that the people in my life nourish me, it's that I nourish me and they nourish themselves. So we all nourish each other.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's where people get it wrong. And, we perpetuate this with family dynamic a lot of the times, but that's your mother, that's your father, that's your brother, that's your sister, right? And we tolerate bad behavior, we tolerate toxic behaviors, and unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much, for some people, it doesn't matter how much rope you give them you forgive and you go on and you get on. If people are determined to treat you bad, they will continue to treat you bad. You're saying, it's called boundaries or teaching people how to treat you. The golden rule. I worked one of the many employment, and somebody said this, I completely changed that. It's like as opposed to treat people how you like to be treated. How about you treat them how they want to be treated? And that really changed a lot for me, because I don't know if you negative self-talk and you feel you can negative self-talk me, it's not going to work.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I think that's crucial.
It is. Treat me how I want to be treated. Treat me with respect. If you can't do that, that's okay.
That's it. Yeah.
I talked about this dynamic of letting go and burning a good bridge, because we hang on to relationships that do not serve us. You have a bowl. I'm down to a cup. I like my cup. I like my cup. I like people. I like my tiny little cup, because these are people that appreciate me. These are people that, like you said, nurture themselves while I'm nurturing myself, so we can all nurture ourselves. It's kind of like companion planting. I'm a big gardener. People forgive me. It's kind of like companion planting, right? There's certain plants that just grow well together, right? Plant certain plants, and they enrich the soil with the nutrients that the other plants need. And it's this beautiful exchange, right? And you have a hardy garden. If you plant watermelon with certain things, the watermelon kills it, right? Because of the chemical it emits. We have the three sisters planting method, which is corn, green beans, and any melon, right? Those thrive well together, right? The corn provides a stake for the green beans to climb, right? The melons are ground growers, right? They provide the shade for the corn to thrive, mitigating weed. I need that environment, right? If we're not supporting one another, what are we doing? Why are we friends? I just had this conversation with my child, and, she's growing into a beautiful young lady. And, she said something happened. She loved watching AFV, and a girl and similarly a friend, they were together, and she did something cruel to the friend. And the other girl on the receiving end didn't find it funny, but the other girl thought it was the funniest thing, right? And I'm like, that was cruel. She's like, I guess they're frenemies. I'm like, there's no such thing. Is that somebody's your friend or your enemy? Don't accept that. Do not accept that into your life. And she's somebody that advocates and stands up for the right thing and defends her friends. And I want her to also be in a spot where somebody's doing that for her.
Right.
Right. Stop accepting negativity in the name of, fashion or culture or religion or whatever it is. It doesn't serve anybody.
Well, it's there's a lot of quote unquote negativity around, right? And it's, it comes from people and that sort of thing. And it's people can be hurtful, and people can want to be hurtful. And those are people that don't get in the soup. They're just they're outside the soup bowl, and maybe they want to be in the soup. Maybe they feel like they deserve to be in the soup,
Right.
but no. And it really is about nourishing. And if I make myself the best me that I can be, and I truly focus on that, I know I'm good for the corn, I'm good for the watermelon, I'm good, right, for the beans. I'm good for the world. And that doesn't mean I don't falter. That doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean I don't, have times where I'm not completely on my game, because that happens. But in general, right, the thread of our lives should be woven with me improving me.
Yeah.
And not me trying to improve the world, because number one, I can't.
Yeah.
And number two, I can't improve anyone that doesn't want to improve, right?
You can't. And, for those bull hangers, I'm going to call them that. Sorry.
I love it.
I'm just giving you gems after gems today, Daryl.
Yeah.
For those bull hangers, just like you said, you cannot change anybody. You cannot change the world. You can only change yourself and, influence your immediate environment. For the bull hangers, the bull hangers that sincerely, maybe after several faltering, because again, we're human, we do stupid things, we treat people in a way that they don't deserve, right? Poorly. So there's certain bull hangers that realize that, okay, I messed up, I'm hanging on the ball. I want in. What can I do to improve this? Okay, where did I falter? Those bull hangers, you can, you determine how this is going to go, because at the end of the day is your peace of mind and, and your life. You determine how that relationship can be reconciled. But Daryl, I am very curious to know, right? What is your take on bull hangers who gaslight you?
To me, that's intentional. That comes from a place in them that is the reason why they're a bull hanger. And so to me, it's all the same stuff. And my life now is characterized by what resonates with me, and what doesn't. And if somebody's doing those kinds of things intentionally, that resonates poorly. And they will either remain a bowl hanger, or I'll have to pry their little fingers off the bowl and just let them go. Right. That's the only option at this point in my life. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, I think the first step is, hey, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm really looking to improve myself, which, hopefully will improve my life, and I'm struggling and I need your help and I need your assistance, and they're a bowl hanger, and I'm trying to help them, and they have times where they falter, or, they do something that maybe they regret, or like, hey, that's great. As long as you're continuing to try, just like I am, then, we're going to continue to try to have this relationship. But when the thread of you, or when the trajectory that you're displaying starts going south over a period of time, I'm out, because you're not serious. Be serious, and I'm with you 100% of the way.
Absolutely. I don't, that is one of my, I'm not a fan of pet peeves, but that is where you lose me, when you gaslight me. When you make it seem like it's an overreaction on my end, or I don't know why you're upset about that, or pretending you don't know what is going on. That is a surefire way to just, have me lose the slightest bit of respect I had left. Because there's something huge in acknowledgement, right? Even if you don't acknowledge wrongdoing, just acknowledging the feelings or acknowledging the space the other person is presenting to you.
How that hit me, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't see it as something offensive. However, you've presented this. I hear you. Can I kind of like digest it a little bit and maybe we can talk about it further? Whatever. As opposed to blaming somebody that, most times it's not just a one-time occurrence. It's something that, has been built over time. So if it's a one-time occurrence, you'll be nowhere near the ball, let alone hanging on the ball.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important to say now, and you said it a little bit earlier, that this isn't, we're not judging humanity in a harsh way. We're just saying for our lives and for what works for us, because before we started recording, I said, "How's everything?" And you said, "Everything is everything," and I love it, and it's true. But I think to sort of go on the heels of that, everyone is everyone.
Yes.
And they are where they are, and they're getting their lessons. I'm not in charge of their lessons. The universe is in charge of their lessons.
That's right.
And so I may come into their life for 5 minutes, or I may come into their life for 25 years, or they may pop in and out of my life. But the point is, we're not judging humanity. We're just saying what works for us in terms of our relationships and what we're willing to accept. And I feel like, there's and I don't like grading or meters and I shouldn't say that to a professor, but there's levels of things that I'm just willing to work with and deal with, whatever. And there's levels of things that I'm just not. And I have to continually upgrade my willingness, I think, to what am I allowing? What I allowed in my life 25 years ago is nothing like what I allow in myself today.
And that's growth. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to change. And
right.
It is very individual. The same way you dress a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Not to interrupt you, Daryl. The same way you dress a certain way is very personal. It's very individual. All right. And that's where the respect factor comes in. If I can respect you for being you and your own person, having your preferences with meals, with hydration, with exercise, with the quality of work you do, with the quality of people you interact with, if I can respect that about you, it's just simple humanity to respect the same about me.
Right.
You see how that works? And
Absolutely.
These are the people that remain in the bowl, because you're you and I'm me, right? The friends that I have, and it's kind of like a running theme of, we laugh about it. We're all so busy doing our own things. We don't talk for months. And all it takes is the text message like, okay, do you want to go out? Yes. Let's go grab a bite. That's all we can do. And we have rules like, okay, no children talk. Let's just, be humans, we're all parents, right? So, that is people like, there's a certain unspoken respect that if I haven't heard from this person, they're busy, right? And it's not like they hate me. It's not like, they don't want to associate with me. It's just that life likes, right? And we should all have our preferences on what brings life to us. Nobody should be guilted into that. It is very individual. It can be communal, but if it is communal, it needs to be laden with respect. It really needs to. Within a community, people can function as an individual, and that's sometimes where we miss the mark. Going back to my growing up, you said what I accepted as, the younger Daryl is not what I accept now. I'm the last of 8, big family. And I always, often, let me not say always, I often would hear, you're so different from your siblings. And as the young child, it was kind of like, I don't want to be different. I want to be the same.
Now it's the best thing on the
Oh my
planet,
God,
right?
it's the best. I want to hear that on a daily basis because I know I'm different. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
it's about people functioning in their individuality within a community, and that is okay. And if that's not okay, the community should not bat an eye when the person's like, okay, if it's not okay, I'll be on the outs. I'm okay being on the outs. And it should be okay with the community. Because if I'm not accepted wholly, then that's fine.
Well, one of the things I talk about, and you're 100%, I think right on the money, because one of the things I talk about a lot, and my books are titled this way, but when I stop fighting, right? And when you stop fighting, and the fight for me comes in, and I was, as you were speaking, I'm thinking, well, the fight would be if I try to jam myself into a situation where I don't belong, or if I try to jam someone into my life and try to justify it, say, they're not that bad. I know they rip my guts out every once in a while, but they're not that bad. You know what I mean? Like, that's the fight, because I know what makes sense for me in my life, but then I'm not doing it. And that's the rub, right? Like, that's where we find ourselves in a place where we're not being true to ourselves.
And let's talk about that rub, Daryl. How many of us shave ourselves on a daily basis?
How many what? I'm sorry, I didn't.
How many people shave themselves?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not pleasant. It's not necessary. That rub, that friction, that forcing, and you're sitting here with raw skin, it's not necessary.
Right.
You know, I'm a very analogy kind of teacher. So sorry if that was a little too graphic.
No, it's good. I like it.
You're sitting and rubbing, and you end up with a shave, a skin tear of sort, right?
But what happens over time, it starts to callous, and it starts to get hard. And then, you've created a barrier between yourself and other people, and between yourself and yourself, which, that's the hard part, is when you have that callousing that comes over time, and the skin gets hard, and you're like, then you can't see clearly. And then there becomes a nebulousness about yourself and about life. And one of my favorite sayings, and I put it in my second book, but the longer you go into the weeds, the longer it takes to get out.
Yeah.
And if you keep chafing and rubbing and developing those calluses, the longer it takes to get back to that softened place where you're not doing that. And I think that's crucial to think about and understand.
Absolutely. I think the biggest misconception that, people, myself included, until I really started, looking inside and doing the work, is that we claim, or we believe, that our experiences do not have an effect on us. They do. They very much do. So talking about that callus, you're tolerating, and very soon, very quickly, you develop, an outlook that people of a certain whatever behave this way. But that's not necessarily true. Just because you have that one experience that you kept tolerating doesn't mean it rings true for whatever, okay? Or, okay, this is just how my family is. No, not really, right? Maybe it's just that one person, right? That is set out to just make you miserable, right?
I got one of those. Yeah.
Don't we all? So you have to create your boundary. You have to create your safe space, in a sense. Not everybody deserves access to you.
Right.
Repeat that again. Not everybody deserves access to you.
And I agree with that 100%. And a lot of times we say, well, because of a label, and these things matter. Sure, family matters and all that, and friend matters, and I've known them for 30 years, and they ascribe to the same sort of beliefs that I do, and whatever that might be, political, religious, whatever. But you're right. and they don't all deserve a seat at the table. And especially because of some label that we keep them around for, because I think that's a very difficult trap to fall into, because it doesn't mean that it's a thing that resonates in my life and resonates for me and is good for me, just because of some label. I think that's very important.
I mean, the label is important, but also what is also real, because of mental illness is also a real thing. All right. Chronic diseases linked to stress is these are real things, right?
Sure.
And just because you feel like, okay, this happened momentarily, I dealt with it, it goes away. No. Your body stores this. Okay. Your body stores this in a way that you can. It's just mind blowing. People have diagnoses that, it doesn't quite make sense, right? The pain, the aches, and, the fatigue and all of these things, that's just your body managing stresses that you keep exposing yourself. So whatever labels you feel like you're justifying, having somebody in your life that is not bringing you peace and happiness, I mean, more power to you. I don't think is worth it. I don't believe is worth it. I don't
agree. Yeah, 100%.
Just some people maybe need a break to just evaluate things and see if you are an asset in their life, or take the ET out at the end, and that you're either an asset or the first three letters, right? So give them space.
Well, it's on the subtitle of my book, so
right.
It's all good, right? Yeah.
So give them space to determine that, and you also need that space to really feel the void, right? People are so uncomfortable in their silence. I pray we all change that about ourselves, because nobody wants to be lonely. Nobody wants to. But the best things comes when you spend time in your head. When you just sit in that silence and get to know you. The constant distraction of talking, chatter, phone calls, text messages, social media, whatever it is. It sounds appealing, but who are you? If I ask you, who are you? What makes you tick as a person? What do you want to invent? What do you feel like, your role is in humanity? Forget the world. In humanity, what effect can you have in your immediate community?
What am I giving, right? What am I contributing, and how am I say this a lot, and I don't mean it to sound as sort of plastic and cold as it is. It's kind of funny, but I look at myself as a product, and what product am I putting out in the world? Am I putting a product out there that can be calm and can be loving and can be peaceful and can contribute to helping other people? Or am I putting out a whirling dervish, like crazy? I can't, rely on myself, much less other people rely on me, like all those sorts of things. Like, what am I contributing? And I think as we get older, that question becomes more pertinent for us, because as we get older, we start to see like, oh, wow, this ride ends, at some point. So what am I leaving out there? Is it, and a lot of people, like, hey, I'm leaving all this money to my kids, or I'm, this and that. Like, no, what's your footprint?
Yes.
What's your footprint out there that people can learn from, or people can, like you just said, it's who am I?
Yeah.
Am I the peaceful person that knows what I'm contributing, or am I not? And it's a lifelong journey. Am I offering something beautiful and wonderful and peaceful and every day? I hope so, but there are times when I falter. There are times when I don't quite get it right, but I also think forgiving myself, and that's another part of fighting, because I can beat the crap out of myself for like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I'm way past this, and I should. And then there's the friction starts again.
Right.
So allowing myself and forgiving myself for times when I falter, because it's going to happen until my ride on this rock is over.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's very important for us to emphasize that, because nobody's perfect. Absolutely not. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has this thing all the way together, right? It's a discovery every single day. A discovery that, sometimes is, wow, oh, okay. And the other hand is like, wow, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That is the discovery. But you owe yourself that, right? If you don't confront those parts of you that maybe you didn't know existed, you cannot better you, right? So the whole point of this journey is, where can I tweak? And not everybody will support your growth. Not everybody will support your journey. And, I have to say that it is very important to also recognize that if you want to grow, there are people that will keep reminding you of your old self. There are people that will keep putting you in a situation to react the old way that you would have reacted. What do? It's the same thing that we would tell anybody addicted to any substance to get themselves out of the environment. Disconnect from the people that provide you, whatever it is, right? The dealer, the friend, the neighborhood, whoever, right? Cut those contacts, right? Do not put yourself in a space that will keep exposing you to what you're trying to run away from. And it's the same measure. It is not a linear journey. You will falter. You will be at your peak, and then something brings you back down. But it doesn't matter. It's that saying, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. All we're counting is how many times you're getting up. Get up and go. Get up and go. It brings me to something that happened the other day, a few weeks ago in a classroom. Love them, but they drive me crazy. There was a care plan assessment due. And usually we were done by the middle of the term, and I review, and I really taught on it. I spent majority of the class teaching on it, and some of my students still did not submit it or did not make the necessary correction. So needless to say, this day I was a little on the short side of patience. So and all through the semester, because the way I teach, I want you to be comfortable. I want you to be happy learning, because that's the only way I feel like I can make an impact. If I stress you out, you're not hearing anything I'm saying. So needless to say, this was noticed. And one of my students were like, wow, Professor Obeya, I thought out of the two, because there was another professor in class, out of both of you, I thought you were the nicer one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big moment.
Oh, huge. I said, I'm glad you said that. I said, everybody, can I get your attention? I want to correct a misconception about me. I am not a nice person. I'm not. I'm not a nice person. Niceness is performative. I'm not coming into this class pretending, right? However, I'm very kind.
Right.
I come into a class when I'm supposed to be in class so you can learn. I come into class, to teach and make sure you understand. Sorry, interruption. I come into class to make sure that you do your work. I make sure that you're taught in a way that you will move on to the next class and graduate, because I need you on the other side of the nursing field. That's kindness. So I am incredibly sorry if anybody thought I was nice. So sorry. Because right. I'm not a nice person. So that's the thing about niceness. Because we want to present ourselves in a polite way. This is cultural for me. Because in the Nigerian culture and the African culture in general, there's emphasis on respect. and the respect that goes only one way. So it doesn't matter what anybody does to you. If they're older than you are, you respect. You don't say anything back. You don't stand up for yourself. And, that goes in line with niceness. You have to be a nice, young girl, a nice young man, a nice. No, I can be kind in expressing myself in a way that is respectful, but I still have to express myself, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? And the whole class was quiet. I said, does anybody have any question? So now do you understand the difference between being nice and being kind? So where do I fit in that box? Kind. Right. So please don't, everybody listening, I'm not nice at all. I will speak my mind. I will let you know if there's something going on. And I urge everybody to not be on the performative side of things, because you're denying yourself. You're denying the essence of your being, who you really are, right? Don't go guns a-blazing, just doing whatever. However, understand what makes you feel respected and seen. And anybody who consistently puts you in a position where you have to do mental gymnastics to tolerate this person, I don't think they need to be in your life. That is just my suggestion. You do what you need to do, but anybody that doesn't bring you peace, you have to tweak yourself to exist in the same space. I don't think that space is for you.
They're going outside the bowl.
Outside the bowl. Let them hang on. If they still are not learning, just like Daryl said, peel the fingers. I wouldn't be that nice to peel the fingers. I will use a spoon and smash those fingers. Well,
yeah, I'll say, okay, I got one hand off. You want the other one going?
Right.
Keep doing it. No, yeah. I think that's great, and I agree. There's such a distinction between nice and kind, and I I kind of look at that, and we're cranking on time here. I just looked. I'm like, wow, we've been talking for 51 minutes already. But there's also I think there's a performative nature, and I know this opens up a whole new can of stuff to talk about, but there's a performative nature to people trying to be positive, like throwing, it's a beautiful sunny day when it's raining inside and I'm having all kinds of thunderstorms and like, oh yeah, everything's beautiful. Like there's a part of us that needs to be real. And I think there's such an emphasis on positivity versus negativity. And I feel like that's what that brought up for me, because I think you become a more light and positive and more at ease kind of a person by doing the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing the things that we're talking about, I don't have any business saying, wow, it's a beautiful, sunny, bright day. And I'm talking more metaphorically, like inside, right? Like when my guts are getting ripped out and I'm trying to pretend. And I think that can be very damaging because a lot of people pretend.
Then you're not around the right people. That's what I'm going to say to that. And people get scared to, expand your horizon. I met somebody incredible years ago. Her name is Candace. And we were talking about comfort zones, right? When you tell somebody to step outside of their comfort zone, it feels foreign, right? It feels scary. Oh my goodness, I'm stepping out into the middle of the rainforest, with everything in here that could kill me, or in Australia somewhere. Sorry, Australia. So
they'll be all right.
They'll be all right. When you talk about comfort zone, talk about expanding your comfort zone. Expand it. Don't step outside of it. Just expand it a little bit. You don't have the right people if you cannot talk about. There's a difference between venting and negativity. Let's just make that distinction, right? Yeah. Venting is me saying there's this whole thunderstorm brewing inside, right? And this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. I need light, I need all of that stuff. How do I get there? I need help, right? That's venting.
Right.
Negativity is more like, you know, this is my lot in life. Nothing's going to work out, you know. Why try? Why bother? You know, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the difference, right?
Damaging.
So,
Yes.
that's the difference. So if you don't have people you can vent to, who can support you in any way, shape, or form, some people just have a great listening ear, right? Shoulder to cry on. Some people give great advice. Some people are the connectors. They know something or know that person. They know a guy. They always know a guy, right? If you're not in a space of people to help you grow, then you're not around the right people. You know, it's the same thing in business. You're a businessman. And, you know, they say if you hang out around 2 to 3 broke people, you're on track to become the 4th or the 3rd, right? It's the same thing with pouring into yourself. Going back to what you said earlier, people around me, they grow themselves, I grow myself, and we're able to benefit one another, right? Step outside of the family or the old school friends group or the neighborhood, friendship, where everybody just, talks about everybody else and, pays attention to what is happening in everybody's household. Step outside of that. Find good, refreshing people to have very good connecting conversations with, right? Redefine as long as you can, I say vertical and ventilating. As long as you're vertical and ventilating, you can grow. As long as you're vertical and ventilating, you can change. As it's part of growth. You need to
I'm writing that down. Vertical and ventilating. Sorry.
Yeah. Daryl, I'll start charging you. That's the 3rd one.
Seriously, yeah. Send me the bill for that. That's a good one.
You need to change. The trees grow, right? If you look outside right now, the trees have leaves. Just a few short months ago, they were bare, right? All you can see were twigs, right? So if these trees can go through seasonal change, so can you, your living thing. Please do it. Change your environment. It's okay. People are not going to be happy about it. It's okay, right? You can choose to explain or you can choose not to explain. That is your own prerogative. But you deserve to be happy. You deserve to live your life to the fullest, whatever that is. Whatever it is, you deserve it.
Absolutely. And everybody deserves that. And I believe it's however the universe, trains us and teaches us and gives us the lessons. I personally feel, and I'm going to start wrapping it up with this, I think, Professor Obeya, because we could just go on and on and on.
You and I, we click. When we converse, we converse. So
we do. But there's a as the universe gives us these lessons, the universe is directing us. It's saying, look, here, pay attention over here, pay attention over here, check it out, and it gives us things like you said, like nature, to help instruct us and to show us that, we're not just this, what do I call it? Meat sack that's walking around on the planet, right? And it's not connected to everything else. We're connected to everything else. And I think that's important. Like you brought up about the gardening or the trees and the seasons. And I know that there are things about me that change in different seasons of the year. And it's really a cool thing to pay attention to.
And what do we do?
Wonderful.
We reward the universe. We resist. We fight.
Yes, we fight.
When we stop fighting. When you stop fighting and resisting, the alignment that happens, oh my goodness, is mind-blowing. You just have to be determined to make that change. And the alignment just happens, right? When you stop fighting, beautiful things happen. So when I stop fighting, that book back there, please grab you a copy. Right.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you saying that. It's been so true for me because I look at it like, look, I'll get 27 lessons of the same thing if I don't learn.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I click around and get in that flow of like, oh, that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
Then I don't get that lesson anymore.
There we go.
Like, who's in charge of that? I'm not. I just, it's how the whole thing works. So anyway, we got to wrap it up. But thank you so much, Idongesit. I so much appreciate your time and your wisdom, and seeing you again and talking to you again is a very, very cool thing. So how do we find you? How do we find your podcast? How do we find anywhere else that you'd like us to find you out there?
I am very much on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has been my home predominantly because there's a lot business-wise going on. So my podcast is on all the major platforms. So we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, the Unshelling Medicine podcast. The Abeg Vex Podcast is also on all the major platforms. So YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. So LinkedIn is the one place that I live. I am on social media, Facebook, Instagram, that one, TikTok, you name it. But the way you would really find the bulk of what I do is really on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in having a conversation, please reach out. I would absolutely love to interact and converse. If there's anything that you feel like I can do, I don't know much. I know just a little bit. If I can contribute.
Me too.
Right. Whatever little bit I know, it will be an honor. So
wonderful.
I'm grateful to be here, Daryl. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you so much, Idongesit. I am grateful for you as well. And I will put that information in the show notes, where to find you. And again, thank you for sharing your wisdom. I've loved it, and look forward to the next time we get a chance to speak.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me, Daryl.
Thank you. I'd like to take just a minute and make you aware of my books. My first book, When I Stopped Fighting, The Unexpected Joy of Getting My Head Out of My Ass, is best described by a recent review. If you're looking for a book that will make you feel like you can tackle anything, this is it. My second book, When You Stop Fighting, The Road You're On Is Your Own Ass Fault, was recently reviewed by someone saying, refreshingly free from self-help jargon, which I love. That was my intent. I feel like these books are doing a lot of good out there and helping a lot of people. So if you get a chance to check them out,